Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation, with the third video of our series Gold Facts and Graphics from a series of infographics presented by Gold Corp. And this one is about the eclipsing demand of the East. Fascinating indeed. These are some infographics that I've only recently discovered, but they are quite dated. But I'm still using them because really essentially their story is essentially magnified by what's been happening since they've been published, especially in terms of gold and how it's treasured for sure. You know, gold has reached an all-time high now, and if the authors of these infographics could see where gold is now, you know, my feeling is that we may see an update or new infographics on gold, just like we are starting to see to some extent with silver. But this is the third, and we're going to go through this and marvel at the data that we can see here visualized. So here we can see that lifted by a continuous surge in Asian gold sales, consumer for gold reached an all-time high in 2013, and it's only gone up since there. In fact, we can see in this bar graph here from 2009, it was from 2,602 tons then to 3,863 tons of consumer demand for the precious metal. And China has 1,120.1 tons there. India was second place at 974.8 tons. Doesn't surprise us that those two countries dominate in terms of consumer demand, as it is enshrined and ingrained in their culture for sure. And that is something that, you know, is missing from the West in general, and specifically the United States. You know, most everyone sees gold, you know, here in the U.S. as well, relegated to a ring or an earring or a little bit of jewelry, not a whole lot. But for those two nations, it is certainly an adoration of beauty in the form of jewelry, but it also is recognized as wealth for sure. All the gold here in the United States that is used in jewelry, well, it has a less purity too. You know, you've heard of 18, 14, and 10 karat gold, and essentially it's a, you know, watered down gold, so to speak. You know, there's alloyed with other metals to strengthen it, which is a good thing, but you have less gold than the higher purity that you would see in Asian countries. In 2013, 54% of this demand came from India and China alone. That gives you an idea of how valuable it is in those two countries. But in the Middle East, you are seeing 231.2 tons of gold in their demand there. But, you know, that tells you that it is popular there too, but not nearly as much as in India and China. And Europe has 308.9, Turkey 175.2, but boy, I tell you what, there's been some increased demand there as well too. Thailand at 140.1, but per capita it's probably a lot more, and given the population of the USA, it's way down there in 190.3. So in other countries, it's about 722.9 tons, for a total of 3,863.5 tons there. Jewelry sales make up the majority of consumer demand, and China and India bought 60% of gold jewelry. There we see the numbers and the charts there that show that in terms of just jewelry demand alone. Europe and the USA combined for only 8% of gold jewelry sales. There you go. Fascinating to see how that plays out with all these other nations and the rest of the USA, which mainly are rest of the world, which essentially relegates to the West. However, it is only recently that the East has dominated global demand for the yellow metal. So this is sort of a kind of a shift, I guess, in some way. We can see gold demand distribution We can see these sort of these bar charts here, these core sample charts, if you will. Look in terms of a drill sample. Other countries: Middle East, Indian subcontinent, East Asia, Europe, and North America. So we can see how this gold demand distribution played out. And we can see that in 1980, it was mainly Europe and the USA. Fascinating. And East Asia was very small, and really in both of these, but we did see it relatively large in 1970 in Indian subcontinent, and those two together in the Middle East certainly gave a run for their money from the Europe and the West. We saw that shift move here in 1990, 2000, and 2010. And look there we go. We can see that the dominating was Indian subcontinent and East Asia. And that was true in 2010, and certainly now, with all the demand that's going on, and it was shifting, we might start to see it again. I think I've talked about in a previous video how, New York has been satisfying some of these contracts with gold orders and things like that. Of course, we talk about the COMEX as well, and delivering on those contracts. We'll see how that plays out. But of course, the cultural demand for gold and silver, especially gold in the East, is really strong. It's going to be tough to beat that. So why has demand shifted so dramatically from the West to the East? So we're looking at India and China to more in depth to find out. So India, gold is synonymous with wealth in India and is an integral part of their cultural life. And that has really been true for so long. As a percentage of income, people in India spend 50 times more on gold jewelry than Americans. So let that sink in. 50 times more on gold jewelry than Americans. So you look at the GDP per capita in US dollars. While GDP growth in India hasn't met the high BRIC expectations, per capita income growth has gone up each year. There you go. Gold purchases is linked to religious and cultural beliefs. Indian customs demand buying gold for special occasions like weddings and festivals, and 10 million weddings take place in India each year. 30 to 50% of wedding expenses are gold. So there you go. It's ingrained in the culture. Here in the West, in the United States, when you get married, you get likely a 14-karat gold ring, which just has slightly more than half the content of the metal in gold. So in other words, when you buy a gold ring, 40% of its metallic content is a copper or silver or some other alloy. Gold is also bought for various festivals throughout the year. Gold is mainly acquired all over India for the Diwali festival. Dhanteras is the first day of the festival, and Hindu consider buying gold to bring good luck on this day. So around 10 tons of gold are sold on this day alone in India. Wow, 10 tons of gold on one day for this festival. For decades, Indian families have celebrated weddings, births, festivals, and holidays centered on gold, and these traditions are passing down from generation to generation. Take the wedding industry, for example. About half the gold that Indians buy each year is for a wedding. With an estimated 10 million weddings taking place every year in India, the country sees a lot of gold buying out of love. This is from a U.S. Global Investors, Frank Holmes. So you think about it, the motivating factor of culture and love is why gold is done. For the love of gold. That's right, I've got a video on the love of gold, but it's slightly in a different context in that regard. But hey, for the culture aspect of it, it's really about you care for somebody and you want them to be able to protect themselves with the metal that is the best to do that, gold. By 2025, India is expected to surpass China as the most populous country in the world. Fascinating. And is expected to have a population of roughly 1.6 billion people by 2050. And that could mean that gold demand will only rise under those conditions. China is one of the oldest civilizations in the world. Not surprisingly, gold plays an important role. Since ancient times, gold has been the color of emperors. Yes, indeed. Although that doesn't explain why in recent years gold has exploded. So we have net investment demand and then fabrication demand for gold there. And you can see that projected in 2014, the incredibly high number, we now know what those numbers are, at least to some extent. The numbers out of China are very difficult to really decipher, per se. And since then, it's increased as well. Amazing. Gold Chinese demand in millions of ounces, and investment demand and fabrication demand. China is the largest producer of gold in the world. GDP per capita growth. China's story is one of explosive growth. In 2014, the World Bank expects China to pass the USA as the world's biggest economy. It hasn't happened yet. But this is where we can see based off the projections, but it hasn't happened. But nonetheless, it is close, and there's a lot going on in China, for sure. There we go. We see that. China has also the second largest middle class. By 2022, China's middle class will number 630 million. Wow. So the annual Chinese net gold imports from Hong Kong. As China gets wealthier, it buys more gold. In 2013, China imported a record amount of gold. You can see that. Look at the explosion of numbers there. For sure. And that gold is treasured, by the way. And I think that's one reason why the price is going up for gold, because of demand and it being treasured and held. Did you know that China now has more than 100 cities with 1 million inhabitants? 170 cities. And it has more than 1 million millionaires. China is the number one jewelry market for gold, making up 30% of global demand. And so when you take a look at that, about the global gold demand breakdown for a 5-year average, we've got 10.4%, about 428 tons going to technology, which is pretty stunning when you think about it. And then we have 48.3%, which is not surprising at all. That's about 1,983 tons over a 5-year average that goes into jewelry. And it also doesn't surprise us that almost nearly as much of that is at 1,693 tons, or 41.3%, in quote investment, although I don't like to use that term with regards to holding gold as a hedge against economic instability. Gold is treasured, and its central banks are holding it, and obviously you and I, we're buying it in that regard in terms of coins and bars, and so we are making up much of that factor. Now, jewelry and investment, we're starting to see more and more of that take place, where people are buying the metal as jewelry, but as an investment at the same time. Bullion jewelry. I posted a video quite some time ago about a gold ring that I got from Monet. And this thing is 24 karat gold. I'll post a link to that at the end screen of this video. And it is the Ring of Power, 24 karat gold ring. And it could very easily be a wedding ring if you were to purpose it for that. But nonetheless, it is pure 24 karat gold, and it is wearable. So there is that marriage in some, essentially, pun intended there, between the two, jewelry and investment. Gold jewelry dates back over 6,000 years. It is the most popular metal for jewelry because it is soft, malleable, and beautiful, for sure. Did you know, here is the purity measure for measured in carats, and they're missing the 14 karat which is the most popular form of gold. I don't know why they didn't put that in there, but it's probably somewhere in the average about 60 percentile, 60% perhaps, 62, somewhere around there, but you get the idea. 24 karat is 100% gold, 18 karat is 75% gold, 12 karat is 50% gold, 6 karat is 25% gold, but the most surprising of all is 0 karat. Look at that. 0 karat gold is only 0% gold. Imagine that. Wow. Mind-boggling that little portion of the infographic is. So gold is alloyed with different metals such as copper and silver to create different jewelry hues. And this is a commonly used as triangle here in the jewelry business here. So yellow gold makes up 91.67% gold, which is essentially 22 karat. 5% silver, 2% copper, and 1.33% zinc to give you that yellow gold. Then you get up into the in the lower purities. With that, it becomes more yellowish, I guess, or deeper red, I guess you would say, depending on the copper content there. Then you have red gold, which is 18 karat, 75% gold, 25% copper, and that also gives you kind of that really deep hue, which is really essentially is kind of what you would see like Krugerrands. Even though Krugerrands, I think, are 22 karat gold, they have the balance in copper, which gives them sort of that color. Same thing with sovereigns. You see that from time to time. Pink gold is 75% gold, 20% copper, and 5% silver. So you look at that in those areas, just a slight designation to give it that pinkish hue with a little bit of silver there. And we've seen that with the commemorative breast cancer coin that came out, I think, in 2018. They used rose gold or pink gold for that. Very interesting indeed. In technology, gold is used in high-performance technology because it does not tarnish or corrode. For important electrical connections that cannot fail, gold is used because of its least reactive, and especially they cannot fail in space. Very difficult and expensive to replace it in space. For investment, in 2013, gold bars and coins had record sales of 1,293 tons, a 28% increase from the previous year. Multiply those numbers by more, obviously, for the years after. Central banks have also been net buyers since 2010. Oh yeah, big time. So why are investors and banks buying so much gold? Well, that'll be covered in the next chapter in the saga here. It'll be on investment. So very interesting indeed. Information packed on this infographic here on the gold and its demand, the eclipsing demand of the East. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.